gonna talk about technique. Finishing technology embeds all of the process. It is the final step before we sell it. That's why it's very important. Steering makers would recognize polishing and setting, but logically the sequence can include number one is burn tempering, number two is buffing, number three is burnishing, number four is chemical processing for antique finishing like grooming, etching, and percolating. I will explain about booming. The booming plant provides a chemical brightening process for goldsmith. Manufacturers speed through a reaction between hydrogen peroxide and potassium cyanide. Number 5 is electrolytic process for polishing, plating, and splitting. I will explain about electrolytic polishing used an electrolytic reaction to melt metal surface. This process is used to melt ultrafine irregularities and turn the object into a smooth and mirror metal surface. Number 6 is engraving. Maybe it can use the laser or lathe. List of cutting to remove spilling by sawing, slitting, and crimping. Next is flighting, and number 9 is gliding. Next is about the hole marking. Number 1 of the hole marking that you see in the picture is the mega marking. Number 2 is the finest marking that tell you the precious metal content explained in a part per thousand or tell you the purity of the gold and maybe in the silver, palladium, and the platinum. Number 2 is access marking, tell you which asset of its type. Next is polishing, sandblasting, and the stone setting. They have many types like channel setting, invisible setting, or bar setting. There's so many types. Next is texturing. Texturing in the picture can make by the hammer. And the last one is undersonic cleaning. It is the process that uses undersound to agitate a fluid. The undersound can be used with just the water, but use of a solvent appropriate for the object to be clean and the type of solids present enhances the effect. The common feature of most of this is they are modifying the surface finish of the component more than the shape. Usually, this means doing the corset job first, but they are gradually using increasing thinner, tools, and cleaner conditions. But there are exceptions. For instance, it is often much more effective to finish polishing a surface before texturing, etching, or engraving select area. However, continually remind the workers to be very careful to choose appropriate grade of tool, adhesive, or polishing media and to maintain interstate cleanliness so that unnecessary work is avoided.
The width of the bed determines the width of the cut, and there is a between the thickness of the back and the number of trees per unit. Cutting sheet require a much wider mesh use. Band saw follow the same principle, but the 14005 more sophisticated. Only a resale jewelry make normal justify the most sophisticated answer. Band solve of the same principle, but the 140 0.74 more sophisticated. Only a large-scale jewelry maker would succeed answer. The width of the blade still determines the width of the cut and its relationship between the teeth of the bell.
The favorite file for jewelry or Swiss precision watchmaker file from value. All 5 clock eventually reached most metal. Jewelry foil are designed to cut only on the forward stop. They should not drag in heavy contact with the work on the return stop. Smearing is worked when the toe is presented as a knife edge with a positive leg at where take place. The internet face area will go as will friction and the situation will become progressively worse but not as quickly as starting with a negative leg. Jewelry file may be clean to some extent, but it is difficult to restore to add new condition. The quickest method is to use a small wear budge and stop firmly along the several direction of the cut of the 5 teeth. Some hard steel wear budge can damage a low-grade file. A reasonable compromise is to use a hard boss wear budge. Good filling and most of the finer grinding operation on jewelry.